The Supreme Court's immunity ruling has complicated Jack Smith's election case against Donald Trump. Sources tell Axios that keeping the federal indictment against Trump alive will be a, quote, painstaking process. But it's one Smith is prepared to do, even if Trump wins. According to the Washington Post, the Justice Department is prepared to pursue its case against Trump beyond Election Day, even up to the inauguration. For more, I want to bring in Marcus Childress, former investigative counsel for the January 6th committee, and former U.S. Attorney Joyce Vance, who spent 25 years as a federal prosecutor. Marcus, I want to start with special counsel Jack Smith. What comes next for him? How did this ruling complicate his case?
Well, the ruling complicated his case because, conversations with like the Department of Justice or the pressure campaign on the vice president, those are key parts of the multi-pronged attack that we highlighted on the January 6th committee, and that was also highlighted in the indictment. I don't think it's as fatal of a blow to the election interference case as some might be suggesting. It just means that Jack Smith's really going to have to show the difference between the actions of candidate Trump versus President Trump. So, for example, if you're talking about the rally on January 6th, it'll be important for the special counsel's office to show the lower court that the permit was taken out by outside groups, such as Women for America First. It was paid for by outside donors. And you can compare it to other rallies, like the 4th of July rally from 2019 that was paid for by the Park Service and the Department of Defense, to show that the January 6th rally was actually a private event, a campaign event meant to get Donald Trump reelected and not an official act of the president. It's going to be painstaking because you have to do that deep factual analysis for all of the facts in the indictment to show that it's not an official act and actually was meant to get Trump reelected rather than an official act of the presidency.
Joyce, I want to ask you about the Department of Justice saying that they're going to pursue cases against Trump, even if he were to win in November. One, what does that signal to you? And two, can you just give us sort of operationally a sense of what that looks like for DOJ?
Yeah, sure. So Jack Smith is not the first prosecutor to be told by a court that he can't use some of his evidence or that some of his counts have to be either dismissed or altered. So this is what good prosecutors do. They put their head down, they recommit to their case, and they move it forward. The election is an artificial date as far as Jack Smith and federal prosecutors are concerned. Their case doesn't go away even if Donald Trump is reelected. The Office of Legal Counsel memo that we've all talked about an awful lot simply says that you can't prosecute a sitting president. It says nothing about someone who has been elected but has not been sworn in yet. So I think we can expect to see Jack Smith go down to the finish line. Look, he has hard work to do here. There are some people who believe that the case is doomed. I think the real sense here is that Smith will have to meet the Supreme Court where they live on this opinion. Many of us would have a more generous interpretation of what private conduct or unofficial conduct looks like. This was not a court that had a generous view of that. They very much looked at almost anything a president did as official. Roberts, the Chief Justice, even talks about the speech that Trump gives at the Ellipse, which is clearly candidate Trump, not President Trump, and talks about how that might be official conduct. So Smith will have to be careful at every step along the way.
Marcus, if I'm not mistaken, I believe you were in the room when SCOTUS came down with this ruling. And I think the reason it hits so hard is because it's not just retroactive. We're not looking back at what happened. We're talking about a future permission structure as soon as this upcoming election that someone like Donald Trump, like his allies, could seek to exploit.
Yes, that's exactly right. I mean, I'll be candid. It was kind of heartbreaking to hear the majority opinion read. I mean, I think we all had a sense that there was going to be some immunity that was granted. I think the longer that the Chief Justice went on reading just how expansive this new immunity was, you could kind of see where it was going. And then when Justice Sotomayor came through and read her dissent in full, I think you felt the balance of, okay, at least someone understands the way that the law the way that we understood it. And so it was refreshing, although it wasn't enough at the time. And so I think moving forward, I totally agree with what Joyce says. I think, prosecutors around the country, especially the special counsel's office, are going to have to just meet the Supreme Court where they are. They're going to have to make those adjustments, which is why, we've already started changing the way we talk about things, such as candidate Trump versus President Trump, because those are two very different actions. But you're going to have to get deep into the factual analysis. And that's the beauty of the district court. The district court is not the Supreme Court. It is a fact-intensive exercise when you're doing evidentiary hearings. And when you make a record that is robust with the facts, it makes it harder to rebut it when it does go up on appeal to the D.C. Circuit or the Supreme Court. And that's going to be necessary because of what Joyce said. The Supreme Court has such a generous take of what immunity is.
Interestingly to me, Joyce, though, it's not just prosecutors. The White House also reportedly weighing its options for a response to the immunity ruling. No concrete plans have been made. Can you just give us a sense of the options that they have?
Well, look, if you're a prosecutor, you hope that the White House will not weigh in with anything to do with your case. But the reality here is that the Supreme Court has written an opinion that is not one that applies just to Donald Trump. It applies to this president, too. It applies to future presidents. And so the reality here is that Joe Biden has the option of taking certain action or pointing out that he could take certain action in response to this case. But what one hopes will happen here is that Joe Biden will take the high road like he always has. The Supreme Court, I think, has teetered into dangerous territory. And when you read Justice Jackson's dissent, she makes that point very clearly. She says the court has removed the guardrails that have kept this country from sliding into presidential corruption. That's the point that Joe Biden needs to make, that presidents are better than this, that he is certainly better than this, that the risk is that Donald Trump is not.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn. MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.